all of you. I'm sure we've had such an enriching weekend, learning so much about play and all that, the impact that it makes. And the sensory component of it just adds to the beauty of it. And I'm so glad that to have you all here this morning joining me. I am Dr. Nani Jaisingani, a pediatric physical therapist and a certified sensory integration specialist. I'm the consultant sensory specialist at the Dhirubhai Ambani International School, and I'm thrilled to have you guys on board. Alright? Thank you. Imagine having to step out for a big Indian wedding. It's a working Saturday. You've just gotten home, but you need to get ready in heavy Indian wear right away. Not only you need to get your kids dressed in Indian wear, which is a task in itself. Your son absolutely refuses to wear his shiny kurta and chooses to wear a t-shirt over his patiala. You start driving out, but there's crazy Saturday traffic. You're tired, you're hungry. Your kids are screaming in the background because they are hungry as well. And you slowly realize you're getting annoyed, you're getting tired. And not only that, you have an ambulance that's driving just with you. The loud blaring sounds of the siren. Bright lights coming from passerbys who don't understand that you don't have to use headlights all the time. Imagine an environment. I could see some of you are already cringing. Does this seem overwhelming to you?
Actually, yes.
Right? Imagine this is what our brain needs to do. Every information that comes in any form to your brain, first gets noticed by your brain. Right? So say for example, me calling out your name right now, me saying Ritu or anyone else's name, it first involves noticing what is happening. The second step it needs to do is filter out what is relevant or non-relevant. There's a sound just coming from outside, but you're all being able to focus on what I am speaking and filtering that out. That becomes filtering. And the third part becomes organizing and adapting ourselves to be able to come back to me, listen and be present here. So our brain is doing this all the time. This process that our brain does of noticing, filtering and organizing the input is something known as regulation. In a lot of report cards, you all must have seen the word regulation or self-regulation. Being able to manage yourself and adapt yourself into the environment that you're exposed to. Whether you like it or don't like it, becomes your regulation. Okay? Now imagine if our brain or any part of our central nervous system is unable to do this. It's going to seem something like this. What goes in comes out as it is, without any mixing, any filtration, any sealing. The world is going to seem chaotic. It's going to seem like chaos all the time, and you're going to feel like you're in heavy Indian wear, straight jacketed in heavy traffic at all times. Okay? Does that sound nice or not so nice? It's painful. It's painful. It's hard. We all know about our five senses. We are constantly learning from what we see, what we touch, what we hear, what we taste, and what we smell. You're going to notice I've kept something on your table, which is unusual. You're not going to see it otherwise on a table. This is something with which you smell, with which you touch. You can, these are not taste safe, but otherwise we can have some floral taste flowers. They make a sound every time you are opening, okay? But our world is not colored by only these five senses alone. There are two more hidden senses which are not frequently spoken about, but they are the game changers. They are what help us make sense of ourselves in the world around us, and our individual place in the world with respect to everyone else around us. Any idea about what these senses could be? Anyone?
Intuition.
A mindset to whether to get along with or don't focus on it.
That would be more of a cognitive quotient. I'm talking about
Emotions.
our emotions again, cognitive.
Social.
Our social skills is a combination of all our senses coming in together, helping us make our place in the world.
Or kinesthetic sense.
Your kinesthetic sense. So kinesthetic sense is a broad term, something that comes under it.
Environment, proprioceptor.
Absolutely. We're talking about our proprioceptive system and our vestibular system.
Yeah.
These are two magic systems. Okay. Even when we are teaching our kids in school, we talk about 5 senses. It's very important as educators, as parents, to be aware of the 2 hidden senses. I'm going to dive in more and let you know more about these senses. Okay. We have the vestibular and the proprioceptive system. Our vestibular system is our sense of balance. Have you all heard about our middle ear having fluid? Okay, some people have earaches or they need to get surgeries done for too much fluid or too less fluid. The fluid in our ears normally moves. That's normal. Some amount of movement of that fluid is very normal. How fast we move or how slow we move depends on how fast or slow the fluid in our ear is moving. The fluid in our ear is what gives us our sense of balance. It tells me about where my body is in space. It tells me whether I'm here or whether I'm on the other side of the table. It gives me information on my balance and grounding. And our second system is our proprioception. Proprioceptive system has sensors all over your body. It has sensors in every joint, in every muscle. It is what gives me feedback about where I am in space, where my hand is with respect to my body, where my hand is with respect to this phone. It teaches me where my hand is with respect to my mouth. It is what gets me to eat. It teaches me how much force or how much pressure to apply when I'm holding a writing tool. You will have a child who presses too hard and pencils are breaking every second, or you have a child who's just hardly making marks. So it gives me my gradation of force. So it is your proprioceptive system which forms the mainstay about helping me understand my world and where I am in this world. Okay? I want to volunteer, or maybe 2 volunteers. Who would like to come up? I need people to come up. Yes, please come. Can you remove your shoes, please? Yeah, just stand here. I know not too many people can see. Okay. Try standing without any back support. Okay. Do you think they're upright? Do you all think they're upright?
Yes.
Can you guess which among the 7 sensory systems that we spoke about are helping them maintain upright balance right now? The vestibular system, because right now the ear, the fluid in the middle ear is tapping. It is telling her it is telling them I'm stable. I'm there. She's getting feedback from her joints, telling her where her feet are planted on the ground. So she's getting feedback about her joint position and sense. She's understanding how much force to apply on the ground and how much ground reaction force is coming for her to maintain herself upright. Plus, eyes are open. So she can see the world around her, giving her feedback about whether she's safe or unsafe. Alright? Now, this is the scenario that we just spoke about. Head was stable, eyes were open, they were standing on a firm surface. Now, I would like for you to close your eyes. Both of you. Now tell me what is helping them stay up. Which are the senses involved? Vestibular. And so vision has been taken away because they can no longer see what is going on. So they are not. So one sense is not helping them enough. Okay. Now, can I have you standing on this cushion for me? Both of you or one of you, whoever. Come on. Okay. Now what is helping them stay up? I know this is a quiz, but I need this to be interactive. I need answers from you all. Vision is helping for sure. And
Both vestibular
what has gotten compromised? The proprioception has gotten compromised because the joints are not able to give feedback enough about where she's in space. Alright? So it is your vestibular system. It is the movement that you just going up. How the fluid moved inside your ear, which told your balance system that okay, maintain yourself upright. Information went to the brain. The brain gave information to the muscles, which said, oh, you know what? You were about to trip. Like you saw, she was about to trip. But the information from her middle ear went to her brain and told her the vision helped, gave information to the brain, and it gave an output to your motor system. Your motor system is your muscles, what we move. And it said, oh, you know what? You are about to fall. Please come upright. Okay? Now, close your eyes right here. Just observe them, what's happening. Look at their bodies and see what's happening. If you want to open your eyes, you can. Okay? I don't expect you to be standing like this forever. Okay. Now tell me what was helping them.
Her body was moving.
Her body was moving. Did you all notice the slight sway that was coming in her body? Why do you think that sway was happening? There was only one sense that was helping her. What was the sense that was helping her? Stay upright. The vestibular sense. Okay? Because her prop is compromised. Her vision is compromised. It was only the movement of the middle ear which was helping her stay upright. Okay? Now, I was meant to be the dangerous person. What just happened?
You threw her off guard.
I threw her off
And
guard.
I was like,
Without any intimation. So
Without
she's not
any
prepared for it.
So what helped her get her balance back? Yes, obviously the other friend there who didn't let her fall. So it was her proprioceptive input that immediately somebody was falling on me. She reacted. It was her movement in the middle ear wherein she went on one side. Now see, this was us filtering and trying to organize ourselves. That let's ignore this and come back to this. Okay? So it was her vestibular system, her prop system, and her visual system all came in together to help her maintain balance. What happened this time?
absolutely.
She was more aware. Okay, yes, she was prepared. So what happens? Our sensory systems not only work depending on what is happening now. Our brain is so intuitive and so great that it relays information from all our past experiences that have come in. Right now, that she knew, her body was alert that there is this dangerous person who's still standing around her. Her senses were alert that she can do anything anytime. I am unsafe. Her body's sensory system was alert, ready. And the moment I did this, you saw the impact. She didn't like lean over, the other one didn't react. Her body knew what to do. So our world is colored by our feedback that our brain has received from the past and feed forward what she's already anticipating as well as our current environment. Imagine our children are doing this at all times. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Thank you.
So this was still the dangerous person right there. Okay. It's unfair that only these two got to feel their vestibular and prop system. Let's all feel our vesti and prop system. Can I just have you stand? I know there's a space constraint, but just stand in your spaces. Are we ready to feel our vesti and prop system? Follow along.
Let's play the party freeze game. Now remember, when I say freeze,
Feeling your prop system here.
and when I say dance, dance.
Dancing, dancing all around. Dancing, dancing.
dancing any way you please. But stop when I say freeze.
You're feeling your prop system.
Everybody!
There you are.
Get ready to hop. Hopping, hopping all around. Hopping, hopping, hopping. Hopping any way you please. But stop when I say freeze. Everybody, get ready to skip. Skipping, skipping all around. Skipping, skipping, skipping. Skipping any way you please. But stop when I say freeze. Everybody, get ready to twirl. Twirling, twirling all around. Twirling, twirling, twirling. Twirling any way you please. But stop when I say freeze. Everybody, get ready to dance. Dancing, dancing all around. Dancing, dancing, dancing. Dancing any way you please. But stop when I say freeze.
Woohoo! How did that feel? How did you feel when your body moved?
We love
Felt its prop. There was a start and a stop. When we have, please sit down. When you have a start and a stop, your body can feel itself. And when our body can feel, not only through our five senses, but our seven senses. It's hot, right?
Yeah.
Can we just make it a little cooler? It's very. When our body can feel through its seven senses, because we stopped, we felt how our muscles felt. Each time when you froze in a different position. And that's when your body, your brain gets feedback from the vestibular system. If I froze this way, probably the movement in my ears is very different versus when I freeze this way. Versus my knee being bent this way to being completely upright. These are very, very, very small motions. But there's a lot of change in the environment and in the brain that's happening with every change in motion. Okay? It is very easy for us to think that. Yeah, I can do Hindi. Okay, I'm going to go a little mix of Hindi and English, if that's okay. Huh? बहुत आसान होता है समझने को कि हर सेंसरी सिस्टम हमारा देखना, बोलना, सुनना, महसूस करना, स्मेल करना, ये सब चीज़ें अलग अलग तरीकों से हमारे ब्रेन को समझ में आती है, पर ऐसे नहीं होता है. हमारा ब्रेन हर जगह से छोटा छोटा इंफॉर्मेशन लेता है, and eventually it takes the information that is relevant to you versus leaving out what is irrelevant to us, and that is what helps us make sense of the world around us. Okay, it's bits and pieces from every place, every sense. And that's how. There's no one isolated sense alone which is helping us do what we do in life. Okay? Now, the same thing that we spoke, I'm going to give some terminologies that we use in sensory integration. The first thing, noticing that we do, is known as sensory registration. The reason why I'm bringing this to your awareness is you have a child whose OT report comes to you, okay, as a school. You need to understand what that means. Otherwise, it's just going to seem like gibberish or jargon. Okay? The registration is what we notice. Me calling out to you or calling out somebody's name. The modulation is the filtration of information. Like right now I'm walking. Some of you may be bothered by the sound of my heel. Whereas others will just not even notice it in their environment and be okay. Or have filtered the information and removed it out. Okay? And the third thing becomes organization, which leads to adaptation of information. Adaptation is us being able to do what is expected of us as individuals at every developmental stage. For a child, being able to adapt and be in a classroom, follow instructions. For an adult, it means probably driving your vehicle and going to work. So adapting in the task that is expected of you is what I mean by this. Am I clear? Any questions till now? What happens when this entire process that the brain does of noticing, filtering and organizing goes wrong? What we see, it leads to differences or even problems in behaviors. So what you notice in a classroom are these. But understand what all is happening in the brain for this to happen. It is very, very easy for us to label a child as a naughty child, or to say that this child just doesn't want to listen. A lot of times the child is doing something not because the child doesn't like you or doesn't want to listen to you. It's because the child's body and the child's brain is trying to meet his or her own needs. I choose me first. The child is telling you, I choose me. I'm trying to fill myself up with what I need. It's not that I don't like you or I hate you or I'm trying to be troublesome. It happens the same in a classroom. It happens in any class, or it happens at home. Every space, the child may have a different behavior. The child may do fabulous in a sport class, but in your classroom, this child will be disruptive. Why?
Yeah, probably sometimes the interest of the child.
One
is
can
about
be interest. Secondly, this child is getting the sensory input in an outdoor space that they want, whereas they're not getting it in your classroom, which is why you are seeing the behaviors, whereas the sport teacher is not seeing those behaviors. So the child is not trying to be disruptive for you. Always important to notice and reflect as to what is causing a problem before labeling. Okay? So we are going to see changes in behavior, in social participation, academic skills, and your activities of daily living. Dressing myself up, eating, packing my bag. All these are activities of daily living. Okay? We all experience the world differently. There may be some of us who love concerts, who love loud places, who love weddings, who love to dance in all the sangeets. But there may be some who will absolutely choose not to be in an environment like that. Why? Because we all experience the world differently. All our senses function differently. Similarly, in your classroom, you will see children who love to get messy. When I mean messy, they will be into the mess. Others, you have to really try hard to even get them to hold the paintbrush, or even come to the table where you have the paints. Why? Now, imagine, sorry, I'm going to have to get something from you.
What do you want?
These
The cups?
cups. These cups and my water. Imagine each of our sensory systems to be like a cup. Every sensory system has its own cup. Okay? Now, most of us have an average size cup. Okay? For each of our senses. मतलब हर sensory system का एक अपना बर्तन है. Okay? And वो बर्तन most जनों के लिए normal size का होता है. Okay? Now what's going to happen? Just observe me. I'm sorry I don't have a transparent one. And imagine this to be the sensory input. The fluid I'm putting in is the sensory input. Right now, I'm filling this cup. Okay? This cup is like Goldilocks' just right bowl. Okay? This is the just right cup. It never gets too little, it never overflows or is not empty. This is my just right cup. Okay? When I have a just right cup for a particular sense, that means I'm able to notice, I'm able to filter, and I'm able to organize that sensory input to its optimal needs, and I'm able to gather the information from my body and from the world well about its sense. However, so this is my just right cup. However, sometimes I can have a really small size cup for a particular sense. That means, now what's going to happen if I fill this cup with just this amount of fluid that is just right? It's going to Overflow. Okay, it's overflowed very, very easily. Now, when the sensory input is overflowing, that means my body is overwhelmed, my brain is overwhelmed. I am not able to take the input that is coming in. It is too much for me. What am I going to do? I'm going to avoid. I'm going to move away from this environment. This is your child who doesn't want to paint, who shuts his ear when there's a loud noise, who doesn't like to be a part of the circle time because somebody touching me is a little too much. This is the child who doesn't want to be a part of your sport classes, doesn't want to go to music class. It's not because the child doesn't want to. It's because my cup for that sensory system is too small. Okay? So these are your sensory avoiders right here. Whereas, I may have an extremely large cup, a very, very oversized cup for some sense. What's happening? If I'm filling just the right amount of input, is it getting full? No. I need a lot. I need more and more and more and more, and it never seems to end. What am I going to do if what you're giving me doesn't seem enough? I'm going to go out and seek it more. These become my seekers. These are your kids who are on the go in the class, who want to run, who are somersaulting in your class, who don't want to listen in the teacher's term, but these kids are just trying to meet their sensory needs. This is the kid who's yelling in class. Why? Because they like that extra auditory input. This is the kid who is going and painting everywhere, not just your paper. Why? Because they learn well through their tactile input. This is the child who's chewing their t-shirt and their iCard. Why? Because the oromotor input that comes in normally is not enough. So the child is trying to self-regulate by giving himself the oromotor and the orosensory input.
Also the kids who are touching other kids.
Yes,
and holding
absolutely.
their white hands.
Clinging, extra huggers, the ones who want to come to you and like cling onto you, the Godi. So the Godi kids, the ones who want to come, can also be kids who have anxiety. So it's not necessary, but the ones who like extra hug, they don't understand. They may go to touch you, but they actually end up pushing you because they can't judge. Their proprioceptive cup is too big. So I can't judge the force or the pressure of whether I am touching you, whether I'm trying to grab this bottle or whether I'm knocking it off. I can't make that judgment. These are your sensory seekers. Okay, imagine they are like the happiest kids because they love to do everything. Okay. So
Sorry,
now,
can I just ask
yes,
a question? Too?
absolutely.
So, I don't know, maybe you would be covering that a little later maybe when you're doing it. So, this is a part of their system when they're born, or?
I'm going to come to it.
Yes,
I'll come.
exactly.
Hyperactive kids. That
Your hyperactive kids become your seekers. Your impulsive kids become your seekers.
So, just wanted to understand whether, sorry, I may not be able to represent my question properly, but sensory seekers or avoiders, are they in any specific sense, or are they generally like that?
Okay. I'm gonna cover this question right here. We all have a sense for we all have a cup for every sense. Okay? Today my sense for auditory input may be a small cup in general. But sometimes if I'm in an environment that's not conducive, my cup can become too big also. I can be a ping pong ball too, moving between a small cup to an average cup to a big cup. Okay? Also, not necessary, if I have a small cup for tactile input, I have a small cup for everything. No, that's not true. I can have a big cup for something, an average size cup for something, a large size for something. Okay? All of us have some or the other sensory concerns. As I'm going to talk about the next slide, think about yourselves first. Okay? Then think about the children in your class. You're going to realize all of us, we call them quirks. Adults have quirks. It's a very nice, convenient term. We have quirks. I don't like to eat pasta. Why? Because I don't like the texture of my mouth. But it's a choice, right? Adults can make choices. Kids get choices, but they are more guided choices. Kids don't have the freedom to say no that much. It's a fact. It's reality. We don't let kids say no that much. As an adult, I'm allowed to say no to the kids every now and then. Okay? So, coming back to your question, what happens is we have different size cups. And as you see, all of us have sensory concerns. I don't like anyone touching my hair. My husband and I fight maximally because he calms down by touching my hair and it throws me off. So that is our maximum fight because I don't like it. But when do you intervene? When it affects function. When it is coming in the way of something that is expected, like academics, sitting in class, hitting other children, being inappropriate or unsafe for yourself or others. That's when you intervene and give therapy. Some things we grow out of, but not everything. You need to monitor and see, is it impacting the child's own learning and others' learning? You just don't send the child for therapy if it's impacting him. But if that child's behavior is impacting other children and their learning, that's also when this child needs help.
Into a counselor.
Or whatever that is needed, right?
The corrective measures.
Are we saying that all the children who exhibit certain kind of a different characteristic or something, it is because of them having different sizes of their cup, or some of them are actually they want to
So see, we can have kids who enjoy attention. Kids don't understand the difference between positive attention and negative attention. If every time this becomes very much about how the adult is in the environment.
Yeah.
If I respond to you only when you come and pull my t-shirt or when you come and tug my clothes, but I don't respond to you very easily when you call out my name, you're going to do that more and more because that's how you're getting my attention. So what I am trying to cover here is to help us understand that not all kids are doing it just for fun. Okay? So here, think about yourselves. Okay? This, I'm just going to say things, you all tell me whether it's a slipper or an avoider. Okay? I love bouncing on trampolines, spinning and swinging my body all day long. I love loud sounds. The louder the better. I chew everything. My iCard, my t-shirt, everything. I don't notice if my clothes are all over. I'm a risk taker. I love jumping, crashing, being on the go at all times. I like to smell things. I may just go near you and try to sniff you. Okay? I'm not a puppy, but I like to sniff you. I love being tickled. I love big, fat, bear hugs. The more, the better. I love rough play. I like playing with lights. I switch them on and off. I hate shoes. Please don't give me socks to wear. What do I sound like? A seeker. Do any of you have things like this?
I have a child in our school. The moment he comes to school, he opens his socks and his shoes.
Because he learns better when he feels through his feet, through his tactile system, which is why he does that. On the other hand, I have a child who hates getting their hair brushed, who hates hair washing, who will come to school with a ponytail that doesn't look like a ponytail. The parent has tried really hard at home to comb this child's hair. It's not the parent's fault that the child has come with open hair at times. Okay? I love to cover my ears at loud sounds. A mixer, a grinder, a dog barking. This is my daughter. She will cover, she can't stand another child crying. She'll cry just because another child is crying. The sound is too loud for her. But it doesn't matter that she's crying loud. That is okay for her. She's able to self-regulate her own sound, but not another person's sound. I'm a very, very picky eater. I don't like to touch. I'd rather eat the food with a fork and spoon than put my hands into the dals. Okay? Don't touch me. Don't ask me to be a part of circle time. Don't ask me to hold another child's hands and walk into the other class. I'm scared to take every step. I'm cautious. Sometimes kids who are toe walkers, okay, are not necessarily because they have tight muscles. It's because the ground seems too much. So I prefer going on my toes. Eventually I will develop tight muscles. Or my proprioceptive cup is too much and I get a lot of good input when I'm on my tippy toes. That's why I go on my toes. Okay?
So I have a question here. What if you're 2 or 3 of this and that? Like for
Oh,
example,
so you can
absolutely, but I don't like being touched.
So these are the kids who are the ping pong balls. Who actually have a small cup for something but are trying to explore and move themselves that side. Their cognitive awareness or the environment around them is wanting them to try something. These are your ping pong balls.
Even children who are absolutely settled first and then start crying after.
Yeah, because they notice the environment at the beginning it seems okay, then suddenly, oh, others are crying, oh, the input is too much, somebody's touching me. Day 1, day 2 of school, everyone said, okay, let's all be nice, nice, nice. As you start doing more, you start noticing more. Okay? Please remove all tags from my clothes. There'll be kids who will absolutely want your tags to be cut. They will not wear certain type of clothes. Only want shorts, only want dresses, only want full pants. They'll roll up your pant if you make them wear tights. All of that. They will not wear jackets. They'll not wear the caps needed. They'll not wear the eye card. All of these. Okay? So, summarizing what we just spoke about. Okay, we get input from all our sensory systems. These are a category who are your passive people who seem absolutely lost. They are unresponsive together because they are not registering only what is coming in. At the first level only of noticing and registering, they are lost. They don't notice what is around them, and they are the ones who seem very passive or lost. Daydreamers in your class would be these. Okay. Your second category are the ones who are managing their sensory input well. Okay, they register the input, they have an appropriate response, and they are managing well in class. Yeah, I'm going to give this out to you all as a handout today. These are people who registered as lots of input. Your small cups. It seems too much for them. So these are the ones who will actively tell you, I don't like to paint, don't take me there. They are very cognitively sharp. They seek out more information about what is going to help them avoid. They are very smart. I don't want to go for music class today. Don't send me to gymnastics. I will not wear these clothes. They are very aware about what is not okay for their body. Okay? These are your avoiders. And lastly, we have our super oversized cup people who register as not enough. Means I want a lot. Give me more. Okay, so they seek out more info. So this is the summary of what I just discussed. Okay. Now, yes.
So will such things in children continue for their lifetime?
No. So what can really help is early intervention. You seek out help. Refer. Kids may have quirks. Like as an adult, I would probably, if I am a seeker, I would enjoy going for holidays to theme parks, or I would love to go rafting. As an adult, I adapt myself because I have the right to say no. In children, we see this a lot more. Okay?
Last year in my class,
Can we come to questions little later? I'll keep 5 minutes for questions, otherwise we'll not over. Yeah? So, now as you all understood, we cannot have one particular activity or one particular type of play that is just right to fill every child's cup. What's really important is to have a balance between routines and structure, because that makes children feel safe. Having your morning meeting. Predictability helps children. That's important. Don't be in a rush to skip the morning meeting, or because your avoiders are going to feel safe in your class if they know what to expect. Okay? And having teacher-directed learning, because see, schools are meant for kids to learn. As well as, and I'm not saying have this, but have that. No, and have that. Because when we say but, it means I can choose one or the other. I mean and. It is important to have a balance between routine, structure, predictability, and teacher-directed learning, along with inquiry, free play, exploration, and child-directed at the same time in the same class. Not any but, and. That is your key that I want you to take back home. It is the and in the middle, not the but. Okay? I'm going to continue talking about the environment, because that is what we as educators, as people who are working with children can change. I can't change the child, right? To change the child needs to go to somebody who's an expert in that. But what can I do as an individual? Okay? Now, imagine there's this child who goes to dance class, loves to dance, is super at her dancing, follows all the steps. But as in every Indian household, we are having a gathering. Please dance for us. And this child is frozen. This child is not able to do the steps that this child otherwise can do, like with her eyes shut. Why? What changed? The child is the same. What changed? The environment that changed. The predictability. the expectations, the lights, the sounds, that is what changed. The child's expectations of what is supposed to. That time there's one teacher and my friends watching me. Here there are aunties just looking at me like this and tell me, ek aur dikhao. Like I am frozen. I don't know what to do. The environment is new. There's new sensory input. It doesn't match the expectations of the child and the brain that the child expects. Okay? Same thing happens in annual days. The kids are performing. The kids are doing beautifully, and on stage at the end you tell, you know what, the kids were doing really well in practice. I don't know why this child is not performing now. It's because the environment changed. I'm sure most schools now get them into the same timing of the annual day, get them into the same routine, have number of practice sessions. Why? Because predictability helps. It gives structure, it makes you feel safe. The sensory exposures are the same. So school or kids that have come for your dress rehearsal, the clothes practice, the lights, music, not being able to see your parents, a dark environment. The ones who came for all your rehearsals will be the performers on stage, not the one who couldn't make it for any of those, because the environment changed. Okay? So, if we give them the right environment, they are going to be not having cups that are overflowing or underflowing that day. They're going to have just right cups. And our job becomes to try and give our children the just right input. Okay? Now, we're going to get up again. Okay? I would have liked us to move, but now that's not an option. So, what do these colors mean to you? Stop. Stop.
And go.
And go. Okay? Just stand up in your spot. And as I show the colors, maybe just jog. Let's just do a jogging activity. Are we ready? Or slow jog. Go. Faster! Faster. Okay. Now, to this, I'm adding a sound. Okay? You need to figure out. We're doing coding right here. Okay? What did I just do?
We were not listening to the sound.
Did you just realize I made the activity multisensory? I made it for the visual learner. I made it for the auditory learner. I combined movement. I combined vestibular input. The tactile was just getting and the oromotor was me giving. We don't have to make every activity all 7 senses, but most activities you can combine into at least a good 3 senses. Okay? You can have a seat again. Imagine your brain to be like the traffic inspector or the police controller. When the environment is ready, you all were all ready, listening, you all seem engaged. When the instructions were simple, did you realize, did I talk too much while giving my instructions?
No.
When the instructions are simple and when there is movement involved, the traffic controller is at ease. My brain is at ease. And I can actually focus on doing what I need to do, which is adapt and learn. Okay? Now, coming back to your question, why does this happen? Sad but true, the most common cause is idiopathic. We don't know. There are predispositions that are likely to happen. That is, if it runs in the genetics. That is, if you have some sensory quirks, your child is likely to have those, but a little more. It always gets a little more exaggerated with the next generation. Most of your kids in your class who have concerns, if you speak to the parent, one of the parents will tell you, I was like this as a kid. Or the grandparent will tell you that my son or my daughter was like this. Okay? Secondly, childbearing has become more and more and more late. So your genetic changes are occurring more and more. Environmental exposure. We have run in mud, played in construction sites as kids. Today, even I won't send my daughter without a help or without an adult to a random place. we ensure that we are scheduling and mapping everything for our kids, even on an everyday basis. And more than anything, seeking help is no longer a taboo. People are more aware, people are coming out more with difficulties. Schools have people on board who are able to recommend that there is a problem. Schools are more open. Earlier, people would hesitate to say my child has a problem because they're not going to get admission into your school. So people are more aware and ready to seek out help. Okay? Here, I'm not talking about any diagnosis like autism, ADHD, all of these. And we don't even rush to label children because labels last for life. Early, all children with autism have sensory processing concerns. But not all kids with sensory processing are autistic. Okay, understand this very, very clearly. All kids with your ADHD, hyperactivity, all of them have sensory processing concerns, which is why we are highlighting this for you to do. Okay? Now, we have time, we have 15 minutes, right?
12:30 is our next session.
12:15. Okay. I'm going to quickly read out something for you, and you're going to understand that this is how your kids are. This book is called Sometimes I Like to Curl Up in a Ball. Okay? Sometimes I like to curl up in a ball so that no one can see me because I am so small. Sometimes I like to jump as high as I can to see how much noise I can make when I land. Okay? Sometimes I like to scream ever so loud. Not that I am cross or upset, I just like how it sounds. Sometimes I like to just walk around and round and round. I pigeon step till I fall. Sometimes I like to stand as still as a tree and watch everyone rush around about me. My attention seeker right there. Okay. Sometimes I like to poke out my tongue or pull my funny faces. Now that can just be fun. I just want to have fun. I want to be a child because I am a child. Sometimes I like to get in a real mess with mud on my feet and my hands and my chest. Sometimes I like to run ever so fast. I sometimes come first, but sometimes I come last. But when the day ends and the sun starts to fall, then I do what I do best of all. I find somewhere soft, somewhere cozy and small, and that's where I like to curl up in a ball. We all, think of yourselves, when we are worked up, when we are tense, what do? We go into the fetal position. We go into a curl. We want someone for a hug. We go for something that gives us proprioception. Curling up is proprioception. Proprioception is the game changer. When you don't know what to do, give proprioceptive input to the child in the class. How? I will come to it. Okay? Proprioception is the key. When you don't know, when in doubt, give heavy work. Give prop. Okay? Now, how sensory processing will look like in a classroom? You'll have several different behaviors that your child will show. Not all of them are appropriate. Not all of them are safe for the child or the others around the child. But these help the child. They make the child give himself or herself the input that the child needs. हर behavior जो आपको क्लास में दिखता है वो अच्छा नहीं होता है वो बच्चे के लिए, पर वो बच्चा वो कर रहा है क्योंकि वो मुझे safe feel करा रहा है. Okay? What else? Yes, sure. Sorry. What is your job in the class? Okay. Notice the behaviors you're seeing. Identify which sensory system is likely to be involved. I'm not saying which is. Which cup do you think is involved? Okay. Provide an alternative option to receive the same sensory input for a child who's going about and touching everybody. Involve that child in a little more messy play. Give that child maybe a fidget toy at the table. Okay? Give provide classroom modifications, give a home program, and follow up and refer to the right person if you feel the child needs help. Okay? I'm highlighting 3 or 4 most common behaviors or things that you notice in a classroom. You have a child who's kicking, punching, or being rough, leaning on desks or people. This child has a very, very big cup for proprioception, which is why he's seeking out all that input. He's not able to understand his spatial relations. You're not understanding how much force to apply. I lean on others because I get the proper input. Okay? This child is seeking out big movements. What do? You give a lot of push-pull based movements. Move the furniture around. Involve that child in tasks, classroom tasks, picking up books, keeping it at another corner. Any animal walks, any tug of war based activities, any outdoor activities. This child is going to benefit. Okay, giving bear hugs, deep pressure through the head. Just go and put your hand on this child. You're giving them the deep pressure through the whole body. Go and put your hands on the child's shoulder just like this. And this child is getting the deep pressure and the input which is going to calm that child down. At least for the next few minutes of your task at hand. Move through soft play equipment, rolling, moving on soft surfaces. Sit and go through an obstacle, crawl and go through an obstacle, roll and go through an obstacle, bunny hop and go through an obstacle. We do all this in earlier classrooms. You just need to modify. And one thing you really need to understand, the child who has a difficulty will benefit for sure. The rest of your class will also benefit because all of us need sensory. Okay? Another behavior that we see would be a child who's yelling loudly, hitting objects, jumping, spinning. This child has an extremely large cup for vestibular and auditory input. He seeks out big sounds and motions. This is a child who's rolling over, falling over, not able to come back for any sit-down based tasks. Also, we need to understand attention span is just age plus or minus a minute or 2. So, give activities that are appropriate. What do? We provide functional movement breaks. How? I'm going to come to it. Give rhythmic singing and dancing. This child is seeking vibratory input, is seeking vestibular and prop input. Give rhythm into your class. Handheld massagers, actual massage guns really work. If you have more than a couple of kids who have sensory needs, having this as one of the tools is a great idea in a classroom. Okay? You have kids who are mouthing, chewing, hugging everyone. They have an extremely large cup for tactile and orosensory input. The child learns better when they move, when they touch, when they feel. Give a lot of messy play. Give exploration of sand, water, cotton, rice, grains, whatever you can think of and whatever you can make available in your setup. Okay? We saw yesterday how we don't need much to create a messy environment. Give oromotor strategies. A child asking the parent to probably send khakras or crunchier food or apple sticks, carrot sticks will help this child get the tactile input needs, the oromotor input. Having a child sip maybe lemon water or having lavender or lemongrass in the classroom helps with alertness and calming. Okay?
Does this also include children who like to spit?
So children who like to spit are seeking the oromotor input. So that could be number one, it could be attention seeking, or it could be that when I see, I like the visual that I'm seeing. That can be 2, and that I like the movement that my mouth makes when I spit out. So maybe handing this child a cup that every time you want to spit, this is where you can do it, and then slowly moving to okay, you know what? Now your cup is going to be kept at the sink after a few days. So this is where you spit. So we need practice. Our brain learns when it does more and more and more. I'm going to come to questions after I finish. Just remember, I'll come to questions. I don't. A child who appears lost and passive in a group are under registers. The first part that we spoke about. They have a very, very small cup. They're getting overwhelmed or they're not registering what is going on in the world. What we do for them? We have quiet calming corners, quiet spaces. Having structure, having routines, having visual schedules wherein the child can go and checklist what I've done. Predictability in your environment. Having smaller group instructions. And there's a big tool called therapeutic listening. It is an app and you need to be trained or you need to be in touch touch with a therapist who has an idea about it. There are different music which can help calm down the environment or help alert your environment depending on what kind of classroom in general that you have. Okay? Modifications about what you can do. Okay? It falls under 3 main headings: your classroom environment and planning, building self-regulation skills in the children itself, and how you give instructions and assignments. These are the 3 things that you can change. Okay? For classroom environment and planning, having more options of seating options. I can have a standing workstation. I can have balls. I can have a sit-down option. So I know space becomes a constraint, but divide your class in such a way that children have option to be seated on chairs. And I'm talking a lot, even up to grade 1 and grade 2. Grade 1 and grade 2 are still small. They're only 6 and 7. Okay? So having different workstation options, because I am getting different sensory and proprioceptive input when I'm using different workstations, depending, and I get to choose where I want. Okay? For a child who likes to touch everybody during the thing, maybe marking a boundary or putting them in a hula hoop, that this is your space, forming your boundary bubble, that this is where you can be, this is in this much you move as much as you want. Okay? Can really help. Having a schedule, having predictability, giving a definitive start and end, and timers if needed. I'm not going to recommend because sometimes some kids get very anxious when put on a timer, but everything is a balancing act. See what works for your classroom. There's no one size fits all in sensory. You will have to do a lot of trial and error and see what is working for that child. At least 1 to 2 weeks of trial and error is what you need before you know what is working. And something that worked for a while may change because their cup size changes. Okay? Having options of Thera disc, or maybe giving them a jacket to hug onto, or Lycra material. Lycra gives a lot of proprioceptive input. Having these options available in your classroom for you to either guide the child or for the child to go and choose themselves. Okay? How do we build self-regulation skills? As I told you, proprioception really helps. For a child who is constantly on the go, maybe having that child sit down with a weighted jacket or a blanket on them, or maybe letting them wear their bag while seated. You're getting prop input at the same time. Maybe this is the child who's holding everyone's books in their lap and sitting. That child will, at least for a high energy activity or for a sit down activity, will at least sit down with you for those few minutes. Okay? When in doubt, use heavy work. You all can take a picture of this. This is an important slide. Fast and less rhythmic movements are energizing. Slow, rhythmic movements are calming. You can share this feedback with your sport teachers about how they can add movement which is energizing and calming to your class. Heavy muscle work, any push-pull based activities used to calm and organize. Always set structure. We are doing this for some time and then we are changing. Also have a quotient of unpredictability in your class. Don't always tell them what to expect because then they thrive only on that. And then when that child will not know what has happened, they will collapse. So keep that. We may do this or may not do this. Have unpredictability along with structure. Again, the balancing act here is important. Okay? These are how you can set up a movement station. You can laminate cards for heavy muscle work or for movement ideas. And you can have a station wherein these cards, wherein you have these options for children to go and choose, wherein they're getting their sensory, prop and vesti input. Okay? This is how we can give vestibular input, rolling, jumping, hopping, gymnastics. Auditory input, we can allow headphones for children who get very easily overwhelmed with auditory input. Let them use headphones or take them out of the space. It's okay. Alright? There are a bunch of fidget toys which you all can go behind and explore and see what they look like. You can have basic flowers which the kids can use as fidget toys. You don't need high-end stuff. Have a quiet corner in your class. This is something known as zones of regulation, wherein you empower the child themselves to understand how they are feeling and what you can do to change it. Self-empowerment fosters a lot of independence, and they are likely to perform better when they feel in control. Okay? Instruction should be short, brief. First this, then that. Highlight your keywords. Specify. Have vocal intonations when you need to highlight keywords. Go to a child if you think a child needs repetition. Okay? Don't forget that. Every child is a different learner. Use a lot of vertical spaces. Vertical spaces for writing, pre-writing, especially in early years, gives me big movements of my hand. Big movements of my hand give me proprioception. I learn better. Okay? Using slant boards, allowing the child to have options to copy from board or copy from the neighbor if I cannot copy from board. Have these options. Use visual overlays. For kids who get very easily visually overwhelmed, yellow transparent overlays are supposed to calm down the visual system. So you can put a yellow sheet over their sheet, laminated sheet, and then get them to use. It calms the visual system down. And about vertical classrooms. Okay? When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows first, not the flower. To begin with, our job becomes changing our environment and our teaching style. And obviously, refer if you feel the child has a problem. That becomes your second goal. But first change what you are doing. There is no bad child. Either the environment is not right or the adult working with the child is not right. I hope your cup is filled just right today. Will someone